What if I told you that the one thing you trust most for winter fishing, that bucket of wriggling shiners you paid good money for, is the exact reason you're not getting bit? It sounds crazy, right? We're always told to use live bait in the cold. But today, we're going to tear down that age-old rule. We're going to explore why your lure box might just be your best friend when the temperature plummets. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand the key biological reason why a lethargic fish sees your lively minnow as a threat, not an easy meal. This might be the single biggest reason so many anglers struggle in the cold. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments right now. For cold water, are you team live bait or team artificials? Let's see where everyone stands. For generations, the wisdom has been passed down from father to son, from one fishing buddy to another. When the water gets cold, you have to slow down, and you have to use live bait. It's the gospel of winter angling. And on the surface, it makes perfect sense. What could be more enticing to a fish than the real thing? A living, breathing, swimming creature that they eat every single day. It has the right smell, the right movement, the right everything. It's the most natural presentation you can possibly have. This logic is why bait shops stay in business all winter long. And we've all had days where it works. But we've also all had those brutal, freezing, fishless days where that can't-miss live bait gets completely ignored. Those are the days that make you question everything you thought you knew. First, let's talk about the cold water reality. When the water temperature drops into the 40s or even the 30s, a fish's entire world changes. They are cold-blooded creatures, which means their body temperature and their metabolism are directly tied to the water around them. Their heart rate slows down, their digestion practically grinds to a halt, and their need for food decreases dramatically. They are no longer aggressive eating machines roaming the flats looking for a meal. Instead, they transform into energy conservation specialists. Every single movement they make is calculated. They huddle up in areas where they feel safe and can expend the absolute minimum amount of energy necessary to survive until the spring thaw. This is not a choice. It's a biological imperative. Understanding this fundamental shift is the first step to unlocking the winter puzzle. Now, think about it from the fish's perspective, through the lens of energy in versus energy out. Imagine a largemouth bass suspended over a deep rock pile. Its body is running in low power mode. It might only need one small meal every few days to get by. So, when it sees a potential food source, it does a quick, instinctive calculation. How much energy will it cost me to chase and eat that thing, and how much energy will I get in return? In the summer, when its metabolism is high, chasing down a fast-moving crankbait or a lively bluegill is a worthy investment. The energy return is massive, but in the winter, that same calculation has a very different outcome. Chasing something, even for a short distance, is a huge expenditure of precious, hard-to-replace energy. The fish simply cannot afford to take that risk unless the meal is practically guaranteed and requires almost zero effort. This leads us directly to what I call the too much problem with active live bait. You hook a lively, healthy shiner through the lips and send it down. What does it do? It panics. It darts around, zips back and forth, and tries desperately to escape. In warm water, this frantic action is like ringing a dinner bell. It signals a distressed, vulnerable meal. But to that lethargic winter bass, it looks like a track star. It represents a high-speed chase. The fish sees that shiner and its brain immediately says, "Too much work." It's intimidating. It's like being exhausted on the couch after a long day, and someone tells you that if you want dinner, you have to go run a 5K first. You'd probably just go to bed hungry. That's the choice the fish is making when it sees your hyperactive live bait. Let me paint a clearer picture for you. Imagine you're tucked in for the night, feeling sleepy and lazy. You're not starving, but you could eat. Someone comes into the room with two offers. The first offer is a plate with a cookie sitting right on your chest. You barely have to move to eat it. The second offer is a hyperactive toddler who will give you a cookie, but you have to chase them around the house to get it. Which one are you going to choose? You're taking the cookie on your chest every single time. It's a no-brainer. The lethargic winterfish is you in this scenario. It wants the cookie on its chest. It wants the meal that requires no effort, no chase, and no wasted energy. Your zippy live bait is that toddler running around the house. It's just not an appealing offer. So, what is the predator's mindset in the cold? It shifts from being an active hunter to being a pure opportunist. The fish finds a comfortable spot, often with good cover or near a sharp depth change, and it simply waits. It waits for something easy to come to it. It's looking for a meal that is either dying, disoriented, or just plain stupid enough to swim right into its mouth. This is ambush predation in its purest form. They won't move 5 feet to chase something, but if it drifts within 5 inches of their face, they will flare their gills and inhale it. The bite isn't driven by aggressive hunger. It's driven by pure, lazy opportunity. The key is to present an offering that perfectly matches this lazy, opportunistic mindset. Your bait has to scream free, effortless calories. This is where we need to debunk the whole idea of a natural presentation. We're taught that live bait is the most natural thing we can use. But think about it. What is natural for a bait fish in 40-degree water? It would also be slow, lethargic, and barely moving. A healthy, strong minnow that you just bought from the bait shop, zipping around like it's summertime, is actually the most unnatural thing a bus could see down there. It sticks out like a sore thumb. A predator might even see it as a threat or something that's just plain wrong with the environment. The truly natural presentation in winter is something that is either dead or dying. It's a crawfish slowly drifting down, a shad fluttering on its last legs. The frantic action of your bait is, ironically, completely unnatural for the conditions. Because fish aren't feeding aggressively out of hunger, we need to appeal to a different instinct. We need to flip their trigger switch. Cold water bites are very often reaction strikes, not feeding strikes. A reaction strike is a pure reflex. It's when something enters the fish's personal space so perfectly that it bites without even thinking about it. It's a neurological response. The bait has to look so easy, so non-threatening, and so vulnerable that the fish's brain bypasses the whole energy calculation and just says eat. This is a critical distinction. We are no longer trying to convince a fish it's hungry. We are trying to trick its ancient predatory brain into making a mistake. This is something that a precisely controlled artificial lure can do far better than a random swimming minnow. And this brings us to the biggest advantage of artificials, the control factor. With a lure, you are in 100% control of the presentation. You dictate the speed, you dictate the depth, you dictate the action, or more importantly, the lack of action. You can make a lure do things that live bait simply cannot. You can make it hover in one spot. You can make it fall at a precise rate. You can make it subtly twitch and pause. This level of control is everything in cold water. You're not just hoping the minnow swims past a fish. You are actively placing a tempting offering right on the fish's nose and keeping it there until its predatory instincts take over. You become the puppet master, and the lure is your perfectly controlled puppet. Let's talk about the single most powerful technique in cold water fishing, the power of the pause. When I say pause, I don't mean for 1 or 2 seconds. I mean a long, deliberate, agonizingly slow pause. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, even a full minute. This is when most bites happen. A jig, a soft plastic, a blade bait can be dead-sticked on the bottom or suspended in the water column, motionless. Now try to make your live minnow do that. You can't. It's always moving, always swimming, always trying to get away. It never truly settles and presents that dead or dying profile. An artificial lure, on the other hand, can sit there, looking like the easiest meal in the entire lake. That long pause gives a lethargic fish time to inspect it, approach it, and finally commit to eating it without any sense of urgency or effort. Let's take a case study. Think about a simple hair jig. For decades, this has been one of the top cold water killers, and there's a reason why. When a hair jig sits on the bottom, the current and even the subtle movements of your hand on the rod make the hair breathe. It pulses and sways with a lifelike action, but it doesn't actually move from its spot. It's the ultimate illusion of life without the intimidating action. To a smallmouth or largemouth bass, this looks exactly like an easy meal. It's a small crawfish or insect just sitting there, waiting to be eaten. You can slowly drag it an inch, then let it sit for 30 seconds. That subtle breathing motion is often the trigger that a frantic minnow can never replicate. It's life, but it's vulnerable life. The theme here is that subtle action is key. The micro movements are what matter. Think about the tiny little legs on a soft plastic craw, or the quivering tail of a drop-shot worm. These tiny actions are visible to the fish, but aren't big enough to be seen as a threat or a chase. They suggest vulnerability. The wild, wide swimming action of a live minnow under a float can be too much noise in an otherwise quiet, slow-motion world. Fish in cold water are tuned in to the smallest details. They're looking for that one little flutter of a dying shad's fin, not a full-blown panic attack. Lures are designed by anglers, for anglers, to create these specific, subtle, bite-triggering movements on demand. It's precision engineering versus random chance. This ties into the idea of matching the hatch, but in a different way. In summer, matching the hatch means using a lure that looks like the active bait fish the predators are feeding on. In winter, matching the hatch means imitating what the forage is actually doing, which is slowing down, dying, and becoming easy prey. The ecosystem slows down together. The crawfish are hunkered down. The bait fish are lethargic and stressed. Your presentation should reflect this reality. Your lure needs to look like it's having the worst day of its life. A healthy, energetic shiner from a bait tank is the opposite of this. It's an imposter. A lure that sinks slowly and lays motionless on the bottom is a much more accurate imitation of the winter hatch. Let's look at another killer cold water lure, the Ned rig. Why is this silly-looking little bait so unbelievably effective when the water gets cold? Because it does almost nothing, and it does it perfectly. Thanks to the mushroom-shaped head and the buoyant plastic, when it hits the bottom, it stands straight up. It doesn't fall over. It just sits there, with its tail pointed to the sky, gently swaying. To a base, this looks like a tiny baitfish pecking at the bottom, completely unaware of its surroundings. It is the definition of a vulnerable, easy meal. You can let it sit there for an eternity. You can barely crawl it along the bottom. You are presenting a meal that requires negative effort from the fish. It's an offer that a cold, lazy base simply cannot refuse. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what about the scent? Nothing can beat the scent and taste of a real live bait. And for a long time, that was a 100% valid argument. It was the trump card for the live bait crowd. But that's just not true anymore. The fishing industry has completely solved the scent problem. We have incredibly effective, scientifically developed scents in gels, sprays, and pastes that you can add to any lure. Many soft plastics come impregnated with salt and scent right out of the bag. You can make your Ned rig smell and taste just like a crawfish or a shad. The scent advantage of live bait has been almost completely neutralized, leaving only the disadvantages of its uncontrollable, often frantic action. Another massive advantage of lures is targeting specific depths and fish. Imagine you're out on the water, and you're marking fish on your electronics. Your sonar shows a perfect arch suspended at 18 feet, sitting right on top of a brush pile in 30 feet of water. Now, how do you present a live minnow to that specific fish? With a slip bobber, you're dealing with wind and drift. With a split-shot rig, you might not get it to the right depth. It's difficult and imprecise. But with a lure, like a jigging spoon or a drop-shot rig, you can drop it vertically, right down to the fish. You can watch your lure on the screen as it descends right to the fish's nose. You can then keep it in that exact strike zone, quivering it in place until that arch turns and eats. It's surgical precision. Let's walk through a common winter scenario. It's a cold, gray day. The water temperature is 39 degrees. You're marking schools of bait and bigger fish suspended 10 to 15 feet down over a 50-foot channel. Your slip bobber rig, even with a lively minnow, is getting ignored. The wind is pushing your float around too fast, and the minnow is probably swimming up or down, away from the strike zone. This is a frustrating, classic winter situation. But now you tie on a half-ounce blade bait. You can cast it out, count it down to the right depth, and work it right through those suspended fish with a slow lift and fall retrieve. You are fishing exactly where the fish are, with a presentation that imitates a dying shad perfectly. Suddenly, you're getting bites. Now let's be fair. I'm not saying you should throw out your minnow bucket forever. There are definitely times when live bait still works and can even be the best choice. For ice fishing with tip-ups, a big stationary live bait under a flag is a time-tested method for catching monster pike. When you're dead sticking for lethargic, bottom-dwelling catfish, a piece of cut bait or a live bluegill can be the ticket. The point of this video isn't to say that live bait is useless. The point is to challenge the dogmatic belief that it is always the best choice, especially for species like bass, walleye, and trout that are often triggered by very specific movements and presentations that only a lure can provide. It's about adding another tool to your toolbox, not throwing the old ones away. Honestly, the biggest hurdle for most anglers is the mental shift. We've been conditioned for so long to believe in the power of live bait that it's hard to put our full confidence in a piece of plastic or metal, especially when the fishing is tough. It takes faith to throw a lure that does almost nothing and just let it sit there. Your brain is screaming at you to move it, to impart some action, to make something happen. But you have to fight that urge. You have to trust the process. This isn't about matching the food in the traditional sense anymore. It's about understanding the fish's state of mind and triggering the bite. It requires patience and a fundamental change in your approach from active to passive presentation. So here's an experiment for you. The next time you're out on a cold day and the live bait bite is slow or non-existent, I want you to try something. Don't leave, and don't just keep trying the same thing. Tie on a very simple rig, like a drop shot with a small 4-inch finesse worm or a light Ned rig. Find a spot where you think fish should be, like a steep point or a deep bluff wall. Cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, and then do nothing. Put your rod in a rod holder or just lay it on the deck. Watch your line. Don't move the bait for at least 1 full minute. I know it will feel like an eternity. Just let it sit. You will be absolutely shocked at how often your line will suddenly go tight. It's a game-changing experience. This all leads to a surprising, almost paradoxical truth about cold water fishing. The less you do, the more you catch. The more subtle your presentation, the more bites you will get. We're so used to needing to create action and excitement with our lures, but in the winter, the opposite is true. We need to create stillness and vulnerability. And the artificial lure is the ultimate tool for achieving this perfect state of do-nothing presentation. It allows you to offer that cookie on the chest, that effortless meal that a slow, cold, lethargic fish has been programmed by evolution to eat. Leave bait simply can't replicate this level of perfect, controlled stillness. It's too alive, too energetic, and too much work for a fish that is just trying to survive the winter. So, to wrap it all up, what have we really learned today? We've learned that the freezing water transforms the entire underwater world. A fish's metabolism plummets, its energy levels crash, and its entire feeding strategy changes from aggressive hunting to lazy opportunism. And here's the big twist: that can't-miss live bait, the one we've all trusted for decades, can actually work against us in these conditions. Its frantic, lively action can look like way too much effort for a fish that is conserving every single calorie it has. The real aha moment is realizing that the secret isn't just about slowing down. It's about taking complete control of the presentation. It's about showing the fish something that looks so unbelievably easy, so dead or dying, so vulnerable, that its predatory instinct takes over. And more often than not, that ultimate level of control is only possible with an artificial lure. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge old habits with me. If this gave you a new perspective on cold water fishing, do me a favor and hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe for more tips that go against the grain. Now, I have to ask, after hearing all this, what's going to be tied on the end of your line for your next cold water trip? A minnow or a jig? Let's get the debate going in the comments below.